Thanks a lot, Julia. And this has been very topical and very hard to keep up with as the government seems to have been changing it each day. So it's great that they've just recently changed and passed that legislation to help Australian businesses. So if I'm Colleen Tarrant from the Brisbane office of Bantax, and I specialise in businesses on Xero and investment property owners. And that's why I'm particularly interested in this topic, which is cash flow assistance for businesses. So in a recap, thanks Julia, so far the Australian government, and we've been talking about this, has been talking about, additional lump sum payments to employers, JobKeeper payments, payments for apprentices and trainees, instant asset write-offs and accelerated depreciation up to 150,000, and all that's really helped businesses. But how else are governments helping? Because it's not just the federal government that's supporting their businesses, it's also the state governments and the banks. And let's see how else they're helping. Yeah, so this is something that probably hasn't got a lot of press, but there's less personal financial risk. So normally, if you're a company and you're trading whilst you're insolvent, that is, you can't pay your debts, your business debts, as and when they're due, and the director, knowing that, incurs new debt. Really, a director's personal assets could be on the line. So what the government has said, that we recognise that this is a really difficult period for a lot of businesses, and they're giving businesses basically a get out of jail free card, so that businesses might appear to be insolvent, but no one's going to be having their personal assets on the line whilst they're insolvent just for this next 6 months. And that's actually a really big concession, particularly for a lot of small businesses, where they might not actually realise how they're trading for a number of months. Maybe their bookkeeper only comes in each quarter. So no one who's in business wants to lose their house or their personal assets by trying to employ Australians. So that's actually a really good concession for a lot of businesses. Now the next one is a little more protection from being sued. So usually a business debt can be only a relatively small sum before you can get sued for it, depending on whether it's bankruptcy or insolvency in the state. But now the federal government's increased this to $20,000 for the next 6 months. So if you owe someone $5,000, they can't sue you or sue you for that amount for the next 6 months. And also, the time a debtor has to respond to being sued will increase from 21 days, which was almost unworkable for businesses, particularly in regional areas, from 21 days to 6 months. And that also is a big concession for businesses that are having difficulties. But of course, it also works the other way. If you have other businesses owing you money, that might be a sadder story just for yourself. But it will take the heat off a lot of smaller businesses. And now we come to some of the more juicier cash flow items that the federal government's offering to guarantee 50% of new unsecured loans for your business. So it's not secured against your assets or secured against your family home. It's unsecured loans, new unsecured loans for your business. So up to $250,000 for a 3-year term. And the business turnover must be under $50 million or less, which is pretty generous. It's a lot of Australian businesses. And also there's no repayments for the first 6 months. And let's all hope that the COVID-19 restrictions won't be lasting that long. So applications for that are available up to 30th of September 2020 for new finance. And there's just one thing with that. So when times were good, was your business actually making money? So if you're looking at getting one of those loans, and say you're going for a $100,000 loan or a $150,000 loan, have you worked out your forward cash flow? Should you take this up, or talk to your accountant about it? And probably combining this with other COVID-19 concessions, both state and federal. Because if you haven't been making money when things were good, is this extra debt really what your business needs? And maybe it is and maybe it isn't. And this will be different for each business. But if you talk to your accountant and talk to your bookkeeper, about getting some of these concessions, maybe one of these can really help you with your operations and keeping your staff on while we're all holed up in our houses. So yeah, look at your figures. Now the other thing is, and this is for a lot of people of affected businesses, a repayment holiday for affected businesses in Australia. So for 6 months, to what they're saying is about 98% of affected businesses. Now, this also applies to commercial property landlords affected by COVID-19. And we know there are quite a few of those in Australia, where if they've got cafes, hairdressers, beauticians, etc., they've all been heavily affected by this and then not getting any trading. So this could also help them over the next 6 months. So it's applicable if your business has loan facilities up to $10 million. So it doesn't actually reduce your loan, but it defers the payments, or they might waive some fees and charges, or they might work with you to get some debt consolidation, which would be a good thing to do for some businesses anyway. If things are a bit messy and they've got different interest rates, maybe that might help you even in good times. And, the banks aren't giving you a big present wrapped up in a nice box with a bow on the top. The interest will probably be capitalised in the meantime, depending on what you can organise with your bank. What the banks also can do, because a lot of the business owners also own their own properties, is that they can also apply to defer their home mortgage payments. So there's a lot of concessions in there, and you have to talk to your bank. And the banks, on just about all the banking websites, they're all saying they've got a higher rate of people calling them and contacting them, but just keep on doing that, because the bank wants to know, wants to work with you. I mean, banks don't want everyone to go bankrupt and their businesses to go insolvent. It's in their interests to work with us, just the same as it's in the interests of the government and the staff and everyone in the society, really, to make all this work. So what the banks are saying is that your credit rating won't be affected by this measure as long as your payments were up to date prior to COVID-19. But the banks are really very willing to negotiate, and I think that's a really good thing. Where can you access this help? If you go to this website, the Australian Banking Association has got a lot of more of the fine print to do with that measure and about talking to your bank and about the ways that the bank can help. And so that business relief package has got a lot more detail about that. So that's a really good link to have a look at that if you want to talk to your bank, being a bit more informed before you actually talk to them. In Queensland, we always knew that Queensland was a perfect state, and this is a really great concession, Corrida loans, which is Queensland Rural and Industry Development Authority loans. And it's a way that the state government in Queensland is helping businesses with operational and job maintenance support. So these Corrida loans have an application process that's got a lot of paperwork to get together. So I've had some of my businesses apply for this, and it's good actually to apply as early as you can, because applications for this loan are open only until 25th of September 2020 or until the money runs out. And I know that a lot of businesses have been applying for it. So basically what it's saying is that they will give a loan, and it's got a ceiling on it which is dependent on how much in wages you've been paying in your business. But they're saying that it's going to be interest-free for 12 months, and then for 2 years it will be on a really low rate of interest. And then after that, it's going up to a 10-year loan. So it's an incredibly generous concession. And I thought originally, oh, this is great. You can combine it with the asset write-off of up to $150,000 and get a concessional loan for it as well. But it's not for purchase of assets, and it's not to refinance another loan. It's for maintaining operations, and it's for maintaining jobs. So it's really to help businesses stay open and employ staff. So there's a web reference in red down the bottom that's got a lot of information. It's got little videos that are easy to watch. It really explains it quite well. Basically, you need your last 2 years tax returns for your business and your last 2 years financials. And they also want personal tax returns for the directors, the working owner directors, their personal tax returns for the last 2 years. If you don't have your 2019 tax returns done, and some people don't because they may not be due until May or June this year, and in that case the government is willing to accept basically management accounts for the 2019 years. What they also want is for the owner directors to give a list of personal assets and liabilities of each owner director. So directors who aren't also owners, they're directors only, just need to provide personal ID. And they want account balances for all your business loans and credit card accounts. They want a current copy of your business activity statement account from the ATO. I found it interesting that they didn't want to see a copy of the income tax account, but they've only specifically asked for the activity statement account. They want an age list of debtors and creditors at the time of application. So your accounts really need to be up to date. I mean, that's something that Bantax always has advocated for our business people, so that they've got really up-to-date information on the financial state of their business. But you need all this information, and it shows, you know, keeping your own records is really important when you come to this sort of stuff, because the earlier you get your application in, the more likely you are to perhaps get your loan approved, because yes, the money may run out long before the 25th of September. You also need 2 items of identification for each director. If you're a trust, trading as a trust, you need a copy of the trust deed. And for not-for-profits, you need a copy of the Memorandum of Association. So there's a lot more information. There's also a good list of frequently asked questions to do with this loan. So for Queensland businesses, this should really help them keep the doors open and keep them open at a concessional rate. So the interest-free period is just amazing, really. As a form of finance, it's better than trying to rely on your credit card, building up your credit card balance for 6 months, trying to keep that going. So it's a really good thing. So the maximum loan is, yes, up to 50% of your annual wage expense to a maximum of $250,000. Remembering, of course, that you are going to have to pay it back. There's also no penalties once your business is up and running again if you want to pay it out early. So there's no exit fees for that loan. It's a very, very flexible loan, and I think it's Labor just trying to support the workforce in Queensland, which is, you know, from business owners ourselves, I think is a really good idea. So there's some of the cash benefits that you can get on top of everything else that has been discussed in the previous webinars. There's the insolvency protections, there's the protections against being sued for small amounts, there's the 50% federally guaranteed loans. You can talk to your bank, you can talk to your accountant, who are giving their clients, like our officers, a great deal of support at this time. And in Queensland, there's queried loans. But on all of these concessions, really, you need to read the fine print, because there is a lot of fine print, and it's legislation that's been produced in a very short space of time. But if you talk to your accountant, they will be up with, you know, what you need to keep your business going. And I hope a lot of Australian businesses do keep their business going and keep people employed, because that's so important for all of us in society. And that's Colleen from Bantax in Brisbane, signing off on COVID-19.